reporting. And so this document is critiqued and evaluated by users of governmental reports, and I think it's important because it provides information that outsiders will use to evaluate, the city of Los Fresnos, your borrowing capacity, your compliance with rules and regulations, and so I want to point that out. Page 11 is independent auditor's report, and that's what you engaged us to do, and we've rendered our opinion on the financial statements that they're fairly presented on page 13 in all material respects. And so as a commission, you expect nonetheless, right, that you're getting financial information that's reliable and useful. And we worked with your finance department to review all of your accounts and to prepare this report. And our opinion is that it is fairly presented. So there's a lot of supplemental information, some of which is required and some of which is additional information that you've supplied. And on page 15, there's reference to the fact that in accordance with government auditing standards that we have reviewed controls over financial reporting as well as compliance, and we've issued a separate report in the back of this report that deals with those matters. And that report will indicate that we did not identify any matters related to internal control that were material weaknesses. We did not identify any matters that were instances of non-compliance with respect to these governmental standards. So that's equally as important as the financial information for you as a community. So I'm going to take you to a couple of quick tables and show you some financial information. And I think kind of what is, fairly impressive. Let's go to page 22. We'll use this as an opportunity to kind of summarize the results of operations. And so, what I find impressive in governmental activities, that's your general fund, general government, your revenues in this time period when we had a difficult year, right, are actually up compared to the prior year. $6.3 million compared to $5.5 million. Some of that is due to grant revenue. Okay, you received a little over $500,000 in federal grant revenue. You received the $384,000 from the Legacy Foundation, and that's included in there, and so that's higher than the prior year. But what is also higher is your property tax revenues went up. You have increase in property values, and then kind of more impressively, sales tax revenues. Right? You would have thought in this time period when things were difficult for everybody, sales tax revenues might have declined, but they actually increased in your community a little bit, $1.3 million compared to 1.2. And so while you had an increase in revenues, you also held the line on expenditures, right? And expenditures actually went down. Nobody knew what the year would hold, and you guys did a good job in controlling expenditures. And so you built, a good surplus into net position for the current year for governmental activities. And in your business type activities, those water and sewer activities, you just approved a big project in your first agenda item. Your charges for services, a little bit higher than the prior year by about $100,000. I think you've had a slight rate increase over time, but still 2.8 million compared to 2.7. And then you actually had some reductions in expenses during the year, and so you held the line on expenses and added a slight surplus to your water and sewer activities too. So I think that's important. That's a very summarized overview of a bunch of detailed financial statements, but that's the results of operations for the year. And management's discussion and analysis gives you a whole lot of good comparisons from one year to the next. Jump back to page 27 and take a look at your capital asset activity. And so there were changes in capital assets. You completed this building and moved into it. That's a more impressive change. And you've highlighted in that little table on page 22 a bunch of bullet points of the different things that transpired during the year, including street and drainage improvements and parks and trails, and so that's a good summary of changes in a big asset category on the city's books. Page 28 has a similar comparison of your long-term debt, your general obligation bonds and your revenue bonds. And I think it's easier perhaps if we jump back into the notes to the financial statements on page 54 and 55. So from there you can see that you didn't have any new debt, right? On note 8, changes in long-term obligations, your general obligations debt, you just serviced your debt principal, and there were no new borrowings during the year, and you can see that in a more detailed format on page 55, right, where you made payments on each of the different outstanding obligations, and there were no new borrowings during the year. And there's a similar schedule on page 56 related to your revenue bonds and your business type activities. And so there were no additions to any of the outstanding series, only payments totaling over $527,000. So again, results of operations were I thought very good for the city in this year of uncertainty. You didn't have any new debt borrowings. You had some big projects you completed in capital assets, and I think the financial statements look pretty healthy for your community. So the last part of the report begins after page 126, compliance section. And that's when I referred to our report on government auditing standards. This is the report that we've issued that says, we've designed our test to review controls over financial reporting, and we found on page 127, we found no matters that we considered to be material weaknesses, the second to the last sentence on page 127. That's important. And in compliance and other matters on page 129, last sentence of the first paragraph, the results of our test disclose no instances of noncompliance or other matters that were required to be reported. So we did have matters that we discussed with management throughout the audit, and none of them were significant in nature, and I think that was important too. We worked with the finance department to make appropriate adjustments to the statements, and again, we found that everything to be in relatively good order. So that's a quick overview. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
On Form 20, page 22, there's the revenue, miscellaneous. What kind of items are listed under miscellaneous revenues? And this is under government activities.
Right, on page 22, we see $201,000 in miscellaneous revenues. I don't have that detail with me, but maybe between Pablo and Amanda, maybe Mark, we might.
I just was curious what miscellaneous.
Things that didn't represent a major source of revenues that you have control over, like the property taxes, sales tax. We can get you a detail of that, and finance has a good detail of that. I do think it's interesting, since we're on that page, to jump back to page 23 and look at your relative sources of income. Sales tax revenue were 33% of your governmental income, and general property taxes were 29%. Debt service taxes about 23%. You also have franchise fees at 10%. Miscellaneous, even though 200,000 is a big number, is 4% and unfortunately I didn't bring that detail with me, but I know that finance department has the individual detail. That is a good question.
No, that's fine. I was just kind of curious because everything is detailed. I just wasn't sure what was under miscellaneous.
Notice on page 23 at the bottom too, how you spend your money, right? Public safety is a lion's share of where the city's money go, and you'd probably expect that in one of your major functions, major roles. General government only 600,000, public safety 2.1, culture and recreation, greater than general government at 739,000. So I think that's important as well.
And the other question I had was on page 27, government activities. I noticed there was a big jump there from 2019 to 2020 under building and systems. Can you define what building and systems means?
let's go back to page 52 because there's a better summary, okay? And so, you're referring to,
I'm referring to the 1.4 million
right.
to
So on page
5.1 million.
52, that same number, 5,138,000, what happened in there is, in the previous year, we had that in construction in progress. We're sitting in buildings and systems. This was completed actually and placed in service during the current fiscal year. And you see that on page 52, where $3.2 million has come out of construction activity and moved into buildings to bring you up to that $5.1 million. So there was a big increase, right?
Okay, thank you very much. With that said, action item number 2, is there any additional questions from any of the council members, comments?
Do you have any final recommendations for the city?
We had some recommendations that we made in verbal discussions, but we didn't find any matters that were significant deficiencies, and so there were some recommendations we made as we came across areas for adjustment, and there are only a few. There were only a few adjustments required in the process. We did, in the back of your binder, this separate document that talked about matters we identified in the conduct of the audit, but that document also indicated that we did not identify any specific control deficiencies that needed to be addressed during the process. We did make some adjustments, and those are included in your document after page 12, and they were, for a community this size, not any major types of adjustments, which means, to us, you were doing a good job internally in keeping your financial records. So. Mayor, I have, some of our detailed records on that miscellaneous income that we might be able to help you with. And so there's going to be things in there. There's garbage collection fees, other permits, and other miscellaneous fees that are coming into play in that category. There were just so many small accounts that couldn't have itemized them all on the face of the financial statement while looking at the nature of what's in there. And there were miscellaneous fees and similar type activity for the prior year too. Nothing that stood out.
Okay, well, you described it, and I know it only makes 4% of the overall weight of it, so I appreciate you elaborating on that. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion at this time to approve consideration and action to approve the audit reports for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do as well. Motion carries.
Excellent report, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that, Polo? Oh, thank you. It's because with these microphones are so loud. So, action item number 3. This has to do with the with the parks. So this seems like it's been broken down into different areas. The third action item is consideration and action to reopen the restrooms at the city park. Now, before we talk about it, Mark, did you want to elaborate anything on this particular subject as far as, I know Governor Abbott recently is removing the mask mandate starting tomorrow.
Just a couple of things that, last time we looked at this as a whole one item, and so I thought it would be good that we separate them because they are a little bit different. Restrooms are much needed. Cameron County has really been the lead in saying keep the parks closed for a time, but yet they still had their restrooms open. We had decided not to, and so because of their lead, and others have done it even before Governor Abbott made his comments, I think that it's wise to open the restrooms for our public that is using it, even if it's only for the walkers and the people that are there. So,
Do we have any other questions from any of the council members in regards to the bathrooms and opening those up at the parks?
Well, I know one thing, they're nice and clean because I saw the guys cleaning them up today, so we're ready.
Mark, are there going to be some kind of routine on cleaning those if they do get opened up?
yes, sir. The CDC recommends soap and water on much of everything. We have purchased backpacks for all of our parks, and they are stationed at each park, so they don't have to go bring them or haul them there. They're there on site with disinfectant that is recommended for surfaces, and so after they do their soap and water clean, they just spray it down is actually what they do. And the restrooms, everything in the restrooms, we're not on playgrounds and all theirs, but they do the same with it.
I see there's an A and a B park signs under that particular action item, and a R&R skate park exercise playground. What is that R&R skate park exercise playground in reference to the restrooms? It's right under consent item number 3. Under action item number 3. There's a and a B right under that, like 3A, 3B. Okay, those are attachments, I guess, is what those are.
And what the attachment is I gave you a picture of the signs as well as the sanitizer stations that we have throughout all the parks. I just thought it was relevant that you knew that regardless of what other leaders do, what we have in our parks is stay still that, use parks and facilities at your own risk. Stop the spread of COVID-19. Be responsible. No more than 10 to a group. Wash your hands. Use sanitizer. Keep 6 feet between you and others at all times, or wear face coverings. Avoid touching your face. So, that message still has to happen, regardless of what other people do in other cities or across the state. So, those will stay up, and that's a recommended thing that we should continue to do.
Mark, I just wanted to say, I think it's good, to do everything that you say you want to do with the sanitizing and all that. Last weekend, I had a chance to go to a park in Harlingen, and they don't seem to be taking any particular precautions. It's like, just, they have their restrooms open, and they've been open for a long time, apparently. So, with so many other cities having them open as well, I don't think there'll be a problem. But to do what you're doing is good.
Any other questions from any of the council members? Would anybody like to add anything else about the bathrooms?
I don't think any decision we make is final, that we can't change it if it's a problem. So I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't open them, and if we see we have problems, we can always close them again.
That's very true. I just want to make sure everybody has questions. We answer them openly here before we move on. With that said, I make a motion for action item number 3, consideration and action to reopen the restrooms at the city park. I motion that we approve it.
A second?
With all those in favor, signify by saying aye for the bathrooms.
Aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose,
Nay.
motion carries to consider an action to reopen the restrooms at the city park. Action item number 4. This is kind of like the next one. Consideration and action to reopen the playgrounds and the swings at the city park. Mark, as far as the cleaning that we talked about with the bathrooms, are we doing the same type of thing with these?
Yes, sir, which would be, they've been doing over the last few days the soap and water deep cleaning since they haven't been used. And some of the, like the swings and some of those are at our plant. They've been cleaning those, and then they'll be disinfecting them as well. That's a concern with kids. Of course, kids have been mostly untouched by this, although if you've seen numbers, it seemed like there's been more recently, which is strange. But I gave in, like in each one of the packets, like page 55, they say spread from touching surfaces is not thought to be the common way that COVID-19 spreads, because that's been the biggest thing about the playground equipment is all kids touch everything, because if you have kids or grandkids, they touch everything. But the biggest thing is the droplets, which is why the face covering is important. So they can still use the playgrounds safely and touch, and it not a major factor about spread. So that comes from all different kinds of sources. As you look at CDC, National Park and Recreation, about playgrounds as well.
Press the button, Mr. Munoz, please.
Yeah, do we have those signs, attention, that says use of parking facility for the own risk? Do we have those where we have the boxes for the hand sanitizers, or do we have them close to the swings and stuff like that?
Every hand sanitizer and sign are close together, and we've got them in different places. We tried to strategically put them where people would be walking into the park at different entrances, and also at different main areas of the park. We have some extra ones, so if we see maybe a flow's different than what we thought, well, then we can add some stations and signs, but we've got quite a few at every park.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
And I have noticed, I think right by the playground at Memorial Park, there's one right there where all the parents sit down, so they are everywhere. How about the rest of the county, Mark, in regards to Brownsville, Harlingen, San Benito? Is everybody opening their parks as well?
Yes, sir. We're actually having a park meeting tomorrow with the leaders of all the parks. But what we've heard is pretty much everybody's opening. Because of this, Harlingen is going to open on Friday. They're not going to do it tomorrow. They're going to open Friday. We thought we would follow in with what the governor said, and as soon as, if passed, as soon as we can get them open, we would open them. But Brownsville, if you remember last time, they've already done a selected few parks. They haven't done all their parks, but they're also opening as well. The Upper Valley, if you'll remember this sheet that I showed you last time, for some reason, Hidalgo County is pretty much, most of them are open already. It was Cameron that was kind of lagging behind, which I don't mind that, being safe more so than not.
Mr. Chairman, in view of the fact that the ultimate responsibility for the kids still lies with the parents, so we need to give them that flexibility So I move that we open up the parks, the playgrounds, the swings, and all our parks.
I second that. All those in favor of consideration and action to reopen the playgrounds and swings at the city park signify by saying aye.
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 All those
nay.
who oppose, go ahead and do those as well. We
Nay.
have nay. We have three yays and one nay. Mr. Munoz, are you restraining or? Oh, okay, I didn't hear him with pressing the button. So 4 yays, 1 nay. Motion carries to approve. Consideration and action to reopen the playgrounds and the swings at the city park. The next item in regards to the parks is consideration and action to reopen the skate park at the community park. Mark, is this a park that's right off of Highway 100? Is that it?
Yes, sir, right by the library, and the skate's kind of like the others, except this is really, you have no surfaces to worry about. It's an individual sport. You don't really do it as a partner, so it's less of a problem than even playground, in my opinion. Could we have people congregate and cause problems? Yes, but they probably would have done that across the street or other places if that's what they're doing. So I think it's a good idea to open the skate area.
I'll go ahead and move that we approve opening of the skate park.
And I will second Mr. Narvaez as well. So consideration and action, all those in favor signify by saying aye for the skate park.
Aye.
All those who oppose do the same.
Hey?
Majority rules, we move to consider an action to reopen the skate park at the community park. Next item up for the park, consideration and action to reopen the exercise equipment at Memorial Park.
The change there that I would, mention is gyms are open now at 100%. Our exercise equipment's at Memorial Park. It's in the open air, which is very good for lessening the spread of COVID. So with the idea that we allow gyms to be open, I think open air exercise equipment is okay to do as well.
Any comments or questions from any of the board members?
I don't have a problem with it either. I think the reason that I don't have a problem with most of these is that we're gonna have to open them anyways. It's
I agree with
the
you.
governor, so we don't really have a choice. So we
Exactly.
might as well go ahead and I'll go ahead and move that we open the exercise equipment.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor for opening the exercise equipment at Memorial Park signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those who oppose do the same.
Nay?
Motion carries to approve, consider an action to reopen the exercise equipment at Memorial Park. The next item, consideration and action to reopen the basketball courts at the city park. Mark?
Comment I'll make here is if you see my notes, you notice that I had actually done this prior to the governor making his comments and changes. And I had a little bit more problem with people because they're close to one another playing basketball. However, I have had a lot of calls that came here since Governor Abbott made his comments. And what they said is, it's the same guys we're with all the time. It's my buddies, and we're doing this and doing that and doing this. So what's the difference in us doing basketball? And so, that goes back to personal responsibility. If an individual thinks that that's what they should be doing, I think that who is the city to be telling them is just me. Would I do it? Probably not, unless I knew them very well and where they've been. But each person, I think, can make those decisions. And so I think it's okay at this time.
Any questions or comments? I know with the removal of the mask mandate, I mean, people are gonna attend restaurants and eat without a mask, so what's, you know, if they're gonna be outside playing basketball, you know, it defeats the purpose I mean, they're still gonna wear the mask if they wanna protect themselves, so. Any comments or questions in regards to the basketball courts? I'll go ahead and make a motion, consideration action that we approve to reopen the basketball courts at the city park.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those who oppose do the same.
One nay.
4 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carries to approve the reopening of the basketball courts at the city park. Next item, consideration and action to allow usage and rental of the city facilities, a community center, a community park, memorial park, or the baseball fields. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've had these on usage and limited numbers because that's what the orders were. And now that those orders are rescinded, we feel like they can be used as people see fit. The baseball will, you know, it's really Little League, and Little League International has certain regulations that they're going to require for their groups. I don't know exactly what those will look like right now, but they have been keeping the kids, you know, separated and apart, and I assume that that'll probably be some of what they still do. Of course, again, as a parent, you have your right to allow your kid to participate in those things or not, so it'd be up to them.
Mark, what about the meals being served at the community center?
It's a good question. Jackie talked to them, I guess it's Monday, it's been a long week, and said we can begin to talk to the people to see if some of them are willing to come back. It would be a individual location decision, and so what we thought we would do, since it's grant funded, that we would visit with have our Lupita visit with the people that would be coming. Are you ready to come back yet? And I'm sure that there'll probably be some that yes and some that no, and we'll serve them that way. She's continued to serve all through this last year in sacked lunches, canned food, different prepared meals in different ways, and still help them with getting to doctors and things like that. So, but yes, we would consider, you know, if they wish to, then the meals will return to happening there.
That would be very good.
So is there gonna be a limit for people to go in there when you rent it, or you're gonna allow it 100% to be used?
100% just limit as far as what the building capacity is.
There's gonna be a sign that says wear mask, or that's not gonna be recommended after the 10th?
We can't say when they rent the facility, it's theirs for their rental to use under certain guidelines, but we can't tell them they have to wear a mask. If we hold an event there, we can say we want you to wear a mask, because the governor's order was businesses, and we are considered a business. So let's say like our meetings, we would probably continue to say, hey, wear a mask when you're indoors. If I rent the facility, it's mine for that time, and so if we just decided not to use masks, well, then we wouldn't have to. But if it was a city sponsored, then we can make that decision.
Any additional questions about this particular action item? I'll make a motion, consideration and action to allow usage and rental of city facilities, a community center, community park, memorial park, and baseball field.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do the same.
Nay.
4 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carries to approve and allow usage of and rental of city facilities, a community park, community center, and memorial park, and baseball fields. Next one, it kind of piggybacks off what Mark was just saying. Consideration and action to keep City Hall closed for routine business that can be handled utilizing the drive-through.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you'll remember what I said about the governor's order, we are considered a business. I think that talking to the department heads and most of the staff, they would feel comfortable to continue wearing face coverings indoors if you can't be 6 feet. We can require that because we are a business. And, well, actually, that's the second thing. I'm sorry. I should have just, that's the next item. But the city hall, because there's so many people that have not had a vaccine, we would like to continue to do business as we've been doing it. We have never refused someone to come in to talk to myself, to talk to Jackie, to do permits if they needed to bring documents. But if it's routine business that can be handled at the drive-through, we would like to keep that for the time being. Maybe in a few months, I know I've heard the comments, you know, if this would have been a few months later, it'd been easier. A few months when maybe most of the people that want to be vaccinated are vaccinated, well, maybe that's the time. But we have some of our employees have not been able to get the vaccine yet because they don't qualify. And so just for protection of them and the general public, we would like to continue for the time being as is. Like I say, we never refuse someone to come in and conduct business.
And Mark, every time I come, I notice you take it case by case basis, so you do whatever you can to take care of the individual. So if sometimes you do let a person in to take care of something they got to get done. So what you guys have in place is working really well.
Mark, for how long do you plan to keep it this way, though?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it would depend on numbers of people being able to get vaccinated over the next month or so, or more, and then open it as soon as we can when those become greater. And then our employees also are, you know, we've got employees that they don't have any conditions and are young, so they can't get vaccinated yet. And so I think we just play it by ear over the next few months. And like I say, the big thing is, if I would never consider this if any business was not transacted to people's satisfaction. We satisfy them, and if they want to come in for a meeting with anybody or need to fill out forms, we let them come in, and we do that in a safe manner, either in here or in one of our large conference rooms.
Have you had any complaints from people about that?
We have not.
So you want to close the whole city, the whole city room, or you just want to close it to attend a meeting with you and a meeting with the city secretary, or you going to allow people to come and give payments here in front, or you want to close it completely, not to come in, just to stay on the outside?
Keep it exactly the way it is right now and has been since late March of last year, where people paying a bill, they use a drive-through. If there's a problem, well, then they can always come in. We let them in. Usually that transaction is easy, and that's done that way. Permits, even a lot of the folks are even like it now that they can drop their information off to get permits. They go do their work and come back when they're done and pick up their permits. And so it's really become very efficient, and a lot of people really like that. So we just keep that for the time being.
Do you know how many cities in the valley have opened up their city halls, if any?
Probably 30–40%, I would say. 30–40%. Most of them are still like we are.
So like Brownsville, Harlingen, all the surrounding areas are still, City Hall is still operating the same way?
I believe, I don't know particulars, but I've heard, and I don't have a list of those like I do the parks.
I think we can continue with this way. Maybe we can just say we'll bring it back in 3 months.
Summertime or
Hopefully by
something?
then more people will be immunized.
Unless something indicates quicker than that, and anybody at any time can say, hey, I want to revisit that.
We can always put it on the agenda, whenever, maybe if not the next meeting or the following, depending on where things stand as far as employees and getting vaccinated. I'll go ahead and make a motion at this time, and this motion will be consideration and action to keep City Hall closed for routine business that can be handled utilizing the drive-through.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, let's go ahead and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose, do the same. Motion carries to continue working as is for the City Hall. And that's considering action to keep City Hall closed for routine business that can be handled utilizing the drive-through. Next item, discussion and possible action to update the employee policy concerning COVID-19. Mark?
This is the one that we put in place, I guess, right after COVID. I don't think in April, because I think that we skipped that meeting because of COVID, but I think it was in May, to handle all the potential issues with COVID. And like I'd mentioned before in the other item, I forgot where I was on the agenda item, is the staff and most of the staff and department heads would like to continue in our facilities to wear face coverings unless you're in your private office. But as we're moving about, we've kind of said mask when you're moving, and if you can't be 6 feet away, well then to wear that for the safety of everybody. For right now, as mentioned before, we don't know who has had a vaccine and who hasn't, and a lot of people haven't had an opportunity to get it yet. So we think we'd like to continue this for a little bit longer.
Is the insurance company still providing COVID tests for employees if they have symptoms?
Yes.
I motion that we approve discussion and possible action to update the employee policy concerning the COVID-19.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And all those who oppose, do the same. Motion carries to approve and update the employee policy concerning COVID-19. Action item number 11, consideration and action to approve the first reading of Ordinance 518, proposing amendments to the Los Fresnos Community Development Corporation bylaws.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the CDC board asked us to look at the bylaws as they were set up many years ago, and you can see there's only 3 changes. Number 1 is on packet page 89, and it's simply just changing the address to where we are now located. It had the old address, so that is relatively simple and straightforward. On packet page 90, in section 2, you can see there when, for some reason, and to my knowledge, it's never been done, if there was the the CDC board elects their president and their vice president from among their board. You, of course, appoint the individuals for that board. For some reason, it had in the bylaws that if one of them happened, either the president or vice president happened to die or resign while they're serving as president or vice president, that it would be filled by the board, but then approved by the council. But yet, none of the other, the regular election on a yearly basis is only with the board and not approved by the council. So they asked that it be kept uniform with the way it's done every February as they elect their own president and vice president. So that's I say a change, but we really didn't even know it existed until, and not sure why it was there for that instance. And then the last one on page 91 is, it says currently the annual meeting of the board shall be the first Monday in February of each year at 7 p.m. And we took out and want to change that to the annual meeting of the board shall be the regular meeting in February of each year. It doesn't specify time. It doesn't specify a day. It just specifies that it'll be in February at the regular meeting. So, because who knows, in 5 years, maybe for some reason the CDC board now needs to meet on, it's more convenient to meet on a Thursday or meet on a Tuesday, and maybe they meet at 5 instead of 6 or 8 instead of 6. And so it would be whatever that regular meeting is instead of specified by the bylaws. The reason why this came up is in February when they elected the president and vice president, we had to have normally have it at 6, and so people show up at 6, and it had to wait till 7 to have the meeting, and it really doesn't make sense in that respect. But those are the only 3 changes.
I move that we accept first reading of ordinance 518, proposing amendments to the Los Fresnos Community Development Corporation bylaws.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Action item number 11, consideration and action to approve the first reading of ordinance 518, proposing amendments to the Los Fresnos Community Development Corporation bylaws. Next up, we got the acknowledgement of the city manager's reports.
I just don't have anything on my report unless you have a specific until we get down to teacher appreciation. I wanted to kind of update you on what we're looking at, and then we'll come back with because it takes money to do this appreciation. So some of the things we are working on to get cost is put a video together with different folks that says thank you, whether it's to a campus, whether it's to a teacher, whether it's to a principal or a bus driver, just someone. And we see them as little segments and put that together. Probably won't cost very much. It'll be more of it's just a big project to get all those people to say things. You would be welcome to say something as well, a little short 10-second video if you wish. We wanted to have a large plaque for the district to show appreciation, and then a smaller for each campus or department. We wanted to, it's kind of teacher appreciation, but we didn't want to skip over the maintenance staff or the transportation staff or the child nutrition. They're as vitally important as the teachers are. So list a little something for each department or campus to have. We're putting together, this is relatively inexpensive, a goodie bag. If you'll recall, we did a similar thing for the police department where it had a sweetheart candy and sweet tarts, and it said something about related to a school official, and I think we've got 10 little candies that we would put in the bag for them, each employee of the district, and there's 1,502. So it'd be a big undertaking, but we think we can just do those little candies. It's not much, but something to say thank you to each individual. We would also, we're looking at a cap that would have the city of Los Fresnos on it. We can get them relatively inexpensive to put this in and say, our hats are off to you, as kind of a slogan. Our hats are off to you, with these candies included with that. Of course, we'd put it on our marquee sign during the month of May, like we did police appreciation. We're looking at getting a banner across the highway. If we do that for sometimes Fire Prevention Week. We've done it for the police appreciation. The rodeo puts up a banner as well. We thought we could put one. We support Los Fresnos CISD's staff with the city logo on it to show a nice appreciation. Of course, we talked about maybe getting the newspaper to, during those 4 weeks of May, run articles about different maybe people or campuses or departments. They would work on that. On the week of teacher appreciation, that we would deliver this to each campus or department. We would kind of do like a parade type of deal where we have a police vehicle, fire vehicle, ambulance, and some of us, and we could go and then actually hand that plaque and the stuff for that department or that campus at that time to show our appreciation, instead of just sending it. But we make an effort to go, and of course you'd be notified of those times, and if you're off and can make those, we'd love for everybody to do that as it can. I think that's I've covered. Oh, another thing, Office Depot's a sponsor of Teacher Appreciation, so we're getting in contact with them. We think we can get some certificates that actually says something for each individual person to include in it. I think it'd be cool to be able to do that I have something in my hand that the city of Los Fresnos says thank you. And so the other thing that we didn't talk about in our meeting, but I thought about it afterwards, is it's relatively expensive. Donuts for the campus. You can buy a lot of donuts pretty cheap, and we can't really feed that many people. We would go broke, but probably donuts or sweet bread, some sweet breads of some kind.
That's actually nice. I would like for all of us to go to each school. I know time is going to be the hard part, getting everybody together, but if we could all make the effort to go out together and greet each of the schools, and I think that would be some really good vibes for us to do for the city. So I'm going to go ahead and motion to acknowledge this.
I need to
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
make comment on, or get some info on the Henderson Road project. Since the last meeting, they've halfway installed the drainage, and they started on a sidewalk in 1 month's time. I just hope they can finish. I don't know how they are financially, but it looks like they're dragging the project out. I think this is kind of would be cognizant for us to look at the future when we award projects out, that we look at the company and see if the company is financially strong. 2, if the company already has a project, do they have the equipment and the manpower to do 2 projects at one time? Because right now they're working on the hike and bike and Henderson. And Henderson is taking the back seat. And like I said, I just hope they can finish the project. But we need to look at those things for future, when we give out, different contracts. And if that, company already has a contract, can they do both at the same time? Do they have the manpower? Do they have the equipment? If they don't, then maybe we need to go with a second person, so that one project does not suffer at the hands of another project.
Andy, I have gone out to check both projects, and I have seen 0 workers at both projects.
Mark, is this something that we vote on like we did last time where we get the different ones and we score the points? Is this how you come about choosing this company?
No, on a contract, it's more based on price. You can decide not to take the low price if there's a viable reason to not accept that bid from that contractor. There some legal issues potentially with that, so you have to at the time look at all of those situations as they come up. Both projects are under the time limit. The time limit is coming up soon. I know it's the end of March for one. I think they'll get some days because of the freeze, so it'll add a few days to there. But end of March, 1st of April, they should be done, or there become some penalty clauses in their financial.
Okay, so they are within their time frame that was agreed upon, correct?
Yes, what the time frame is calculated by engineer on work days of what they project that it would take to do that work. And so I agree with Mr. Lopez. It's a long time. I don't like it when they're not working. And I'm ready for it to be done. I'm past ready.
I'm not looking at penalizing them. That's not where I'm coming from. I just want the project completed, and like you said, I know that we had, I think March 17th was the date that you mentioned to me without looking at freeze dates and all that other stuff. But my concern here is not to penalize them because they don't finish within a time, but for them to finish.
And it is an eyesore.
Get
I
it
was gonna
done.
say the issue is that whenever we have a selection committee, those are issues that we all need to look at. That we can't have favoritism, and if we see that one company looks good but has another big job going for us or whatever, we need to look at that and consider.
I don't think there was favoritism in anything because, you go with a low bid and you go from there. But I think we, as council members, we need to look, like I said,
But
ahead.
all that
and-
criteria is included in there, and it's up to us to select who's gonna do the best possible job. I want it to be finished like everybody else, even though I don't live out there, but I mean, we've had other projects that have taken way longer, and we just have to deal with it because there's all kinds of things that can get in the way that are unexpected. And
Maybe
I've
at the
learned
next
that,
meeting, you
and-
can give us the due date with all COVID and everything built in together. And if there's extenuating circumstances, maybe Mr. Peterson can come and let you know so that you can let us know, because it's been trying times. And if we can communicate with each other, then, we can come to some understandings if there's problems.
The biggest complaint I get, Paulo, is not that they don't know, the people don't know when the contract is up, that there's nobody working day after day. There's nobody shows up to work. Am I right? Is this the biggest complaint I get?
Well, in the last couple of days, like I said, no, I would say the last 5 days, they started the sidewalk and they got about 90% of it done, but it's like 2 or 3 guys. And they're also working on the drainage side of that little thing there. 2 or 3 guys. You know, it's not 2 or 3 guys here and 2 or 3 guys there. It's 2 or 3 guys, period. You know. The west side.
I will get those dates for you.
I move that we accept the manager's report as stated.
I second the acknowledgement of the city manager's reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye,
Aye.
and all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge the city manager's reports. Next up, acknowledgement of department head reports.
If you did notice on page 117, our sales tax for February was 39.78% increase. That's phenomenal. So that would have reflected Christmas. Sales taxes collected, it's 2 months behind, so that would have reflected sales that happened Christmas. So pretty phenomenal, 39.78% increase. Gives us a year total 17.82% up, and so that's really good.
Imagine this next 3 weeks with spring break, it's gonna skyrocket. And we could probably have better sales if somebody would get the Whataburger in.
One never knows.
Just cross your fingers and your toes. Any more questions about any of the reports from the department heads?
I move that we accept the department heads' reports.
And I second that. All those in favor of acknowledging the department head reports signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge of the department head reports. Time is 7:09, and this meeting is adjourned.